Isolation is where you truly grow. When you start to isolate yourself, that's when you start to see success. Once you pull away from relationships, women or men, whatever gender you are, is when you start to see success. You start to see fulfillment in your life. You start to find purpose. You start to find happiness. You start to find financial freedom. But why does this happen? Let me try and illustrate something to you. The other day I was talking to my cousin, and my cousin's maybe about 27, going on to 30 in a few years. And he's been struggling with things the majority of his life, such as maybe drug usage, women, sex, easy hookups, delayed gratification. And his life has been a function as a result of the people that he's chilled around. So, for example, his friends or his past relationships. The people that he's hanged around, the company that he's kept, is the type of person that he's become. Whenever I look at my life, I've always considered myself a sort of outcast. I've always considered myself quite lonely. And the few interactions I've had with people, such as my past relationships or my co-workers at work, have always had such a massive impact on me. I look at myself as, for example, water. If you try and visualize yourself as a vessel that has water in it, and then you fill that vessel up with cordial, such as raspberry cordial or whatever, I don't know, Robinson's fruit juice, you start to diffuse that juice or that drink in yourself. You become what's put inside of you. What then happens is you take on the habits, the qualities, or the identity of the people that you hang or chill around. So, for example, even if you look at maybe school children or whenever you were at school or different trends or look at social media, what begins to happen is people begin to take on the values of what people do on social media or the habits. I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago, that was that massive fad with putting steak on boards with eggs and fruits and cheese, and it looked cool, it looked nice, looked healthy, and we decided that, we would do it. You become what you see on a regular basis. You become who you chill around on a regular basis. And the problem with where you are right now in life is that if you're not where you want to be in life, there's a reason for it. And there could be many different reasons. There's time, there's social connections, and sometimes it's just mainly just time. You need more time to grow, isn't it? But where you are right now, you're around people that most likely aren't exactly where you want to be. And so naturally, you're around people that don't necessarily benefit you. And that also goes for your relationships. That's why they talk about not being in relationships too young, because you end up growing out of those relationships because you're still figuring yourself out. So, what does this mean? Once you begin to take on the identity or the habits of the people that aren't necessarily in alignment of where you want to be in your life in this current moment in time, you begin to default on your dreams. You begin to, in a way, not become who you're supposed to be. You become somebody else. And then you've got to do all that work to break the habits of being a different person. Whenever I've put myself in a season of loneliness and or isolation, I've been able to recalibrate my own identity. I've been able to cleanse and wash away the old habits that I've taken on from other people. And this is one of the most difficult things to do as a human being, because we're all social. We're all very, what would be the word? We're all social beings. We all want to hang around people. We want to be around what makes us feel comfortable. But what you're comfortable with now is not what you can take with you into the future. It's not what you can take with you into your new life. If you think you can hold on to the old people, the old relationships, or the old habits or patterns that you've done in your life in the past and expect them to bring them into your future and change your future, you're completely wrong. There's a reason as to why you are where you are right now. And if you don't change those things, you're going to stay exactly where you are. And you deserve to be exactly where you are until you notice these habits and change them immediately. Once you force yourself into a season of loneliness and isolation, you force yourself to see the demons that are in front of you. You can no longer ignore them. They come up to you with such force and vigor that you have to fight them head on. And I tell you now for a complete and utter fact, if you stick with it long enough, that you allow yourself to really uncover the truths about yourself that you've been neglecting, that's when you start to see a different part of yourself that you're able to change and start to see success or some sort of success in your life. The main thing about loneliness and isolation is that it doesn't take much practical effort. It takes more mental effort. There isn't necessarily any sort of truth behind it. It's more that once you begin to isolate yourself for long enough from the people and the things in your life that are messing you about, you begin to really focus on it and change it subconsciously. You begin to shift yourself out of those old patterns because you realize it's not you. Think about a time where you've maybe hung around with friends that are no benefit to you. They smoke all the time, they drink, they indulge in sex continuously, and you're around those people so much. And you might not even enjoy being around those people. But then you realize that once you begin to isolate yourself, maybe you go a weekend without seeing them, how good you might feel, but at the same time, how shit you might feel. That bad feeling is simply an effect of withdrawal. And that's the second part to talk about this whole thing when it comes to loneliness and isolation is the withdrawal that you feel after removing yourself from something that you know that no longer benefits you. It always gets harder before it gets easier when you started to notice these habits of deterioration and neglect. But once you begin to overcome them slowly and begin to, I'd say not necessarily force yourself into your new identity, but I'd say transfer yourself into your new identity, that hardness, that withdrawal, that wishing to want to go back to those old habits they do begin to dilute over time. And one thing I will say is that this isn't a perfect thing that happens. You will likely fall back into those old habits, those old patterns, but it's more about the consistency and how often you allow yourself to fall back that defines your future. It isn't about being perfect, it's more about being consistent. And once you're consistent, you start to see changes in your life.